We already started the recording. Yes, welcome everyone. First, I would like to express my deepest condolences to the people in Turkey due to the devastating earthquake. And we extend our condolences to all neighboring countries, especially Syria, which suffered from the earthquake. As Red Pepper Association, Kırmızı Biber Derneği in Turkish, we are in solidarity with all people who suffered from it, and our hearts and our minds with all of them. I am Fatma Aytac, the chairwoman of Red Pepper Association Turkey. The information about the association was shared in the concept note. If you didn't get it, we can send it afterwards. And it is shared in the HOVA platform as well. The describing with one sentence, Kırmızı Biber Derneği, Red Pepper Association is a non-governmental organization based in Turkey, advocating gender equality, equal rights, and in every aspects of life. Let me say a few words about myself. I graduated from Bosphorus University, Boğaziçi University in Turkish, which is one of the best schools in Turkey, as an industrial engineer. On this occasion, I would like to send my profound respect to Boğaziçi faculty, students, my schoolmates, all graduates, alumni associations, and alumni platforms for the extraordinary effort and advocacy they pursued until today. The year I graduated from Boğaziçi as an industrial engineer, I started to work in iron and steel company, which is one of the largest establishment in Turkey. I was not aware then, but it was a very bold start. I was the first woman engineer recruited by the department. Of course, the room full of male engineers reacted to the fact that there will be a woman among them. It was not a very warm welcome. They didn't want me to sit in the same room with them. The resistance and the struggle started at that point. It is a long story, but I will not tell it today. Being a woman engineer in the male-dominated field can represent its own unique set of challenges, but it can also be an opportunity to break down the barriers and pave the way for future generation of women in STEM. Seeking our mentorship and support, building confidence, learn how to assert yourself, embrace diversity are some of them. As a civil society activist today, I can say that the advocacy I developed in those days shaped my path today. As an engineer in the department, I didn't have a role model, and I had the responsibility of being a role model. All of the distinguished speakers in this panel will share their experience from their perspective of their respective field today, academy, business, and entrepreneurship. Every one of them is a role model in their fields. I hope it will be an exciting panel for everyone participated to hear their experiences and inspiring stories. Thank you all for attending to our panel, and I would like to give the floor to Tendu Yugucho for moderation. Tendu, floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tendu Yugucho, and I am the Chief Technology Officer at Precisely. Like Fatma, my journey started in Bursa, Turkey, and I was a student who is super interested in math. And at the time, computer science was a very early field. I started education in Boğaziçi University in computer engineering, where I had the pleasure to meet Tumay. We were in that 18% of the population in the computer engineering. Then we continued our masters in industrial engineering, where we were in the 2 out of 6 girls in the master's education. When I came to United States for PhD in computer science, I was exactly at that 4% of all computer science PhD students. Women representation was 4% at the time. So I have experienced being in that privileged role. I thought it was a privilege, right? It's an opportunity to be a role model, to set the ground for the next generation. And I have taken several engineering leadership roles, general manager roles. My company today is a global company. We operate in over 100 countries, and 99 of Fortune 100 are our customers. And I'm so proud that in the R&D and across the company, actually, I was able to achieve 40% women leadership throughout those years. So I'm excited to be in this forum. And as you can imagine, for someone who has gone through that journey and with the passion that I had, when I saw the primary theme for this year's United Nations Commission on the Status of Women was innovation and technological change, and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls, it was inevitable that we have to organize an event. I, in fact, had an article last year at Forbes. The title was "The Role of STEM Education in Achieving Gender Equality." So all of the stars were aligned for this event. I am joined today with a wonderful group of experts, and I'm honored to be in the presence of these leaders in their areas. Before we start the panel, some housekeeping rules. We have muted all lines, and we would like you to be muted throughout this panel. To ask a question or comment, please use the chat. There's a chat icon at the bottom of your screen, and you can post your question for everyone. Bengü Ulukaya, who is our moderator for the Q&A session, is going to pick the questions and will be moderating the Q&A at the end of the session. So thank you for your collaboration on that. So let me introduce our panelists. We have Rachel Rothman. She is Chief Technologist and Executive Director of Good Housekeeping. And I had the privilege of listening to Rachel in one of the panels that we were attending in New York a couple of years back, and her enthusiasm really impacted. It was wonderful to see how she was conveying the impact of technology in every field that we are in. Our second guest is Tümay Ulukaya. She is an entrepreneur. She is the founding partner of Limit Bilgisayar, a software company in Turkey. And she and I go back to our undergrad and graduate. We were in the same class across 6-7 years. So she will be sharing some of her experience as an entrepreneur and founder. We have Dr. Ahu Yıldırmaz. She is the president and CEO of Coleridge Initiative. Ahu, in fact, brought the data and analytics lab to ADP prior to becoming president and chief executive officer for Coleridge Initiative. She works with data, and Coleridge actually focuses on sharing data and making data more standard and accessible across all states in the United States. She will share that experience with you. And last but not least, we have Dr. Jean Zhu. She is the Lord E. Feiler Dean of Schaeffer School of Science and Engineering at Stevens Institute of Technology. Jean comes from an engineering background, mechanical engineer. She has done a tremendous job at Stevens by being a role model as a dean, and also actually bringing an advisory board that I have the privilege to serve in, where she created that diverse board, and she is doing a lot of things in terms of bringing more women into the ranks of the STEM fields. So as we start our panel, I thought it would be good to set the context. Why are we talking about STEM today? If we go back to 2015, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals were accepted by all of the United Nations as a universal call to action to address the global challenges we face, including those related to poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace, and justice. You can think of them as the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. There are total 17 goals, and an action in one actually will affect the outcomes in another one. Today, we are talking about goals 4, ensuring inclusive and equitable equality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, and goal 5, achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. What happens in one area, in one action, really has an outcome that has an impact on the other. And why STEM? What is STEM? STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEM education is becoming a critical part of quality education because we are going through a digital age. Now, I'm going to ask our panelists to give us their perspective. They have unique backgrounds from academia, from entrepreneurship, from business, and they have experience that can help us understand why STEM education is important and why STEM education is important for women. Ahu, I would like to start with you.
Thank you, Tendu, and thank you, Kırmızı Biber Derneği, for arranging this panel. Well, I'm a data technologist. I'm an economist by training, so that's how I look at all the STEM gender equality discussion. When we look at the past 10 years, we have been seeing high-speed rates of digitalizations in the overall economy across every sector, but this has been catalyzed by the pandemic even more past 3 years. Artificial intelligence, machine learning are the technologies really powering this digital information. And we know that already gender data actually shows that gender bias already occurs during machine learning. Take an example. When you think about car accidents, seat belts, headrests, and airbags in cars, designed mainly based on the data collected from car crashes, but these are coming from dummy tests designed for male body features. I'm a woman, don't look like a man. So if we do not have sufficient female workers, educators in STEM field, what's going to happen? All the data designed for the products and services will be biased. That means this is actually not simply a typical technology discussion. We are talking about the lives coming from the gender biasness in technology. So that's why it's all about creating the data sets. And if there's not enough women contributing, there will be holes in the technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and to avoid these gender biasness in services and products that we design, we need more women. That's just simple.
Thank you, Ahu. You make a great point. The bias, because of the data collected, that influences every decision that's made and the future of jobs as well. In fact, I was reading a report by World Economic Forum, and this was about future of jobs, a very close topic to you from your prior research as well. And the report states that 84% of organizations and employers are accelerating their digitization agenda. We have seen this in the COVID, right? we were all doing, look at this environment. We are all on a virtual panel today, and luckily have quite a lot of attendance all over the world. The remote learning, online applications, digital spaces accelerated significantly. And with that digitization agenda, 50% of employers intend to actually have more automation of jobs, which will require a different skill set and problem-solving skills for underrepresented groups. This will create actually a challenge if we don't upskill them, reskill them, and invest in that education. So Rachel, can you share from your perspective why you think STEM is so critical, and perhaps give your insights to this audience?
Sure, of course. And again, thank you so much. What an incredible group, and just seeing everybody from around the world, how incredible that you brought everyone together. So thank you. And thank you for having me. And yes, it is a topic that I'm very, very passionate about. Anything that we can help to do to empower the next generation of future STEM leaders, I want to support, I want to get on board for. I'll share personally, I have a background in mechanical engineering, and I now have 2 young girls at home. So I have two young girls and a boy, and really see, as we're saying, it's the entire pipeline. So we need to start really young with women, helping to empower them. I have a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old who are sitting there saying, I love math. And my daughter makes double equations for me, and she gets so excited and, you know, feels confident in it. And we want to continue that confidence. And we want, as they're growing up, and to be able to go, as we're talking about some of these higher education, we need to have a diverse grouping of people that are there. And what I do, I oversee product testing at the Good Housekeeping Institute. We are looking at consumer product goods and services. So all these things that you may come in contact with, we're evaluating. And we sit at this really interesting cross-section of both consumer and of industry. So we were just talking about the seatbelts as like this perfect example. I get to meet with the OEMs, who are the manufacturers of the automobiles, and have these conversations with them. So I get to hear from consumers. I get to see very large data sets, which I'll get into later. But then we also get to have the voice to speak with them to try to implement change there as well. And that goes across any consumer product good. I was recently pregnant and then postpartum with these children, and who are predominantly making these products. It's being made by men. And we need women in those positions. We need women at every different stake, in the R&D, in the development, in the marketing, in the distribution of every element of it, particularly if these are products that are end game going to be affecting us. And if we're not being a part of that process, then you're missing out on a whole set of information that could be really informative for making those products better. So I think diversity across the board, of age, of gender, of sex, of all different facets of life, brings so many different elements to the table, particularly when you're creating these products. So without the education, you can't show up to the table. And I have to say, I want to do a shout out. I have Birna Aral, who's on the call right now, and who helped facilitate my inclusion on this. And what a role model she was for me. I entered into the workforce at Good Housekeeping at a time when there were not a lot of engineers, there were not a lot of women who were mothers, and she represented this ideal to me, this person who was able to parent beautifully and raise a beautiful family, and brilliant. I'm getting teary-eyed because she has the 2 most incredible daughters who are both in scientific endeavors now that she helped to raise, while having this incredible career and impacting so many people in such a beautiful way. So the more role models we have, and the more we can see that this is possible and plausible, the more we can continue to grow it. I went into my first engineering classroom, and they're like, oh, we think you're in the wrong classroom. And I was like, oh, isn't this computer science? And they're like, oh, I guess you're in the right place, and I graduated, and I was one of 4 women who graduated with my degree. 50 men. So yes, tides are starting to turn, but we have to continue to build that, empower women, grow that so that they can get educated and be able to be in all these amazing roles. I could go on and on, but I know I was meant to keep it tight. So we'll circle back later. But again, thank you so much, and how incredible to have this group.
Thank you for joining us, Rachel. And you represent also a unique background, right? You are in media, and you are working with the products, and the technology background is actually helping you. We are seeing that shift. We are seeing the shift that every single industry is becoming a data-driven industry to survive in the digital fourth industrial revolution, what the World Economic Forum calls. So And Birnur is a role model for many, and role models, I think, in general, are really important, because we can't be with someone if we don't see an example of, right? So we have to see those examples for people to stay at work, retain in the skills and the positions we have, and also open the door for them. Jean, you are a great role model. You are the Dean of School of Science and Engineering. What else can we expect for those young people coming for their bachelor's degrees? Can you speak to us about how your background and how you are seeing the STEM's role for achieving gender equity?
Thank you, Tendu. It's my great pleasure to attend this panel. It's a great honor as well. My background, I grew up in China, Beijing, actually, and I did my undergrad and master in Tsinghua University, where in Beijing. I went to Canada for my PhD 2 years after I actually worked at the same university as a lecturer. Then I got my PhD and went to work at the University of Toronto for 23 years in mechanical engineering, starting from assistant professor, in the end, department chair for 8 years. Then there was a great opportunity presented to me in 2017, and I was very fortunate to become the Dean of School of Engineering at Schiffer School of at Stevens. So it has been a quite journey, because when I started, there were actually, I should say that in China, there were more women in engineering. But when I came to Canada, to my very surprise, it was actually much fewer. So when I joined the University of Toronto, I was the second female faculty member in the department history. The one before me joined only a year and a half before my joining. So it was all men for years. And when I joined Stevens, I'm also a professor in mechanical engineering at Stevens. I was the first female tenured faculty member at Stevens. So I have to say that while technologies have grown so fast, so much, and many workforces have women in STEM education, I feel that in the educational field, we still lack enough role models in our workforce in higher education. The good thing is that I have to say that the force to drive more women to participate or to be educated in STEM education started many years ago. I would say about at least 30 years ago, there was a strong push. There were all kinds of programs to really encourage women to get into STEM fields. Good progress was made, but then in the past, I would say in the past about 20 years, there was a stagnation. The growth of enrollment in STEM by women and faculty members have remained really flat until recently. I would say there are a few more pushes. I have to say, when I joined, our women faculty account was low, very low. As I told you, I was the first female faculty untenured stream faculty member in Stevens, but I'm glad to report right now there are 4. We need role models and leaders, women leaders, to push for the agenda. I'm also glad to report that in CS department at Stevens, we now have 30% women faculty. That's also really record breaking. I can see that there are more and more women who become interested in joining STEM education. To opt STEM as their programs. Stevens, when I started, there was about 20% women students. By now, we are already at 30%. And this year, I'm very glad to report, among all the applicants, 37% are women. So I really feel encouraged to see the trend getting better and better. And I also observed at Stevens, at least, and also perhaps across the board, that those women students who enter universities, doing their college or master or whatever, they actually are, they treasure the opportunities more, they appreciate more. So I can see we have more women leaders among students participating in different leadership roles on campus. And the other thing I'm glad to report, retention rate for women is much higher than men's. At Stevens, 6 year, I would say 6 year, maybe not 6 year necessarily. The retention rate in the first year for women was is already 99%, while the average was 96%. So you can see women are really doing well once they enter.
I see.
So yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing. Women, once they enter, they do much better. But it was the pre-concept, and we need more role models so that high school girls or elementary school girls, they want to. They should not be scared by stereotype that STEMs are not suitable for women. That's not the case. And in reality, they are doing much better. I have to say that now across every corner, every field of professions, be it traditionally women-focused professions, technologies, you have to have it, you have to use. Our flagship programs at Stevens is called Music Technologies. So it's really for musicians, but with technologies. The employment rate is 100%. So you can see everywhere we need technologies. We also have another flagship program called Business and Technologies, also flagship. Of course, our engineering programs are always flagship at Stevens, and our tech, computer science is the most in demand. So overall, I'm very encouraged by the trend, and I'm also grateful for having this panel, organizing such an encouraging session for all the women who aspire to be in the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Jean. And you made two super important points. One, I heard from you that once they enter, right? That's super important because sometimes girls in high school don't necessarily understand some of these skills and the fields, how they will benefit from them. I'm aware of business and technology, how Stevens combines that, as well as music and technology. We are seeing many colleges are bringing technology to other fields. Marketing is all digitized today, right? You cannot really be in marketing without having data and digital skills. So maybe introducing them, I believe Stevens has a program in high school before they make those choices in middle school is a key to create that pipeline. And we can come back to that topic afterwards. But thank you for sharing your insights. Tumay, you're an entrepreneur. How many years ago you formed your software company in Turkey? Can you talk about that? I bet you had some challenges.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Tendu. I'm running my software company for 30 years. I think STEM education is very important today, but will be increasingly important in the future. First, the job market is increasingly demanding workers with STEM skills. For example, our software company, always needs skillful developers, testers, and support engineers. Also, many high-paying jobs in fields such as healthcare, finance, engineering, and technology require a strong foundation in STEM subjects. So if you have a STEM education, you can increase your employability and career options. Technology, is advancing at an unbelievable speed. And it's important for everybody to have a strong understanding of STEM subjects, just to keep up with these advancements. Through STEM education, people can not only adapt to technology, but also contribute its development and innovation. This is what we have been doing for years by developing commercial software in our company. Also, STEM education provides girls with problem-solving skills. girls and young people, critical thinking and creativity. These skills are essential for addressing complex issues and developing solutions to real-world problems. I have been observing this among my employees, young employees, for years. Through my STEM education, I have developed new software products, services, and ideas that can create jobs for young people, young girls, to contribute to economic growth. Therefore, I can say that STEM education is critical for fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. Overall, STEM education is an important subject because it prepares young people, young girls, for the challenges and opportunities of the future. They can increase their career options, they adapt to technological advancements, develop problem-solving skills, and contribute to innovation and entrepreneurship, just like I once did. Thank you.
Thank you, Tumay. When you, I'm sure that you had some challenges, especially 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I think we are seeing more actually investments. Most of the global financial services that we work, they have some programs that to identify minority-owned businesses or home-based businesses. So there's a growing attention, especially with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, to encourage minority-owned, home-based businesses to participate in this digital economy. Do you see that certification programs and upskilling and reskilling is an option? Because take United States, the university education is so expensive. It is almost unaffordable. So we will not be expecting to have everybody to have a university education. How do you think about that, creating opportunity for some of these skills, and how did you strategize in your business to address that?
We have internship programs, as you know. We are trying to encourage children, young people, and youth on their STEM competence and knowledge of science as a basis for reasonable action in sustainability. I am seeing really the solution is the other programs, initiatives to encourage people, young people at high school and before that. There are many of them in our fields. For example, Code for Girls, Code.org, like these organizations are really making a good job on their fields.
Thank you, Tumay. Ahu, I will come back to you. You work with data, and what does data tell us in terms of the women in STEM fields and actually the STEM education's role in closing the gender pay gap?
Sure. Tendu, let's pull up the first slide that I have. It's just a visual. So let's think about the overall workforce first. And these are the figures from the US, so relatively the best numbers we have globally, right? That's given. But this really gives us a benchmark, an idea of how extreme the numbers are. When we look at the overall US workforce in the US, looks wonderful, 50-50. It sounds like the overall workplace is well balanced. There's no gender biasness. And then STEM jobs, actually, it's even a better story, it seems like. 76%, when you look at the, I'm sorry, I wanted to say the worst, but when you look at the STEM jobs within this 50-50 workplace in the US, only 24% of the STEM jobs are women. But let me go back again, that 50-50. First of all, that 50-50 is misleading because when you start looking at the gender equality, right above the mid-management jobs, that 50-50 becomes 10-90, 15-85. it completely changes. What it means that higher level management jobs, men have more jobs than women at the higher level executive levels in the workplace. This is even worse now. So think about that. We don't have 50-50, we have 24-76. But when it comes to the STEM world, this is even more extreme. So I think we should also think about the education to workforce outcomes, meaning that, yes, we have education, we have more women now going to the STEM education, but we have to link that to the workforce outcomes. Where do they play a role, right? I am managing data scientists, and when I took over my company, it was almost all the data coders were women. But it was interesting because the coders are women, and I'm a data technology company. I'm running a data scientist company. All the coders are women, teachers are guys, and they all have. In fact, my data scientists have all PhDs, men who are managing and making more money, have master degrees. So there is this whole concept of when we go and talk about the STEM education, let's make sure we connect to the workforce outcomes, because in the next slide, I will also show you the wage disparity. So if you can move to the next slide, Tendu.
Sure.
So for what this slide shows on the, it's a better story for STEM jobs. So I'm really proud of this. On the right side, when you look at the non-STEM jobs, for every, let me just see, I actually can see this now. For every dollar a man makes, it's around 80 cents, 79 cents a female makes. But on the STEM side, for every dollar earned by a man, women in STEM earn 86 cents. So there's still a gap from a wage perspective, but that gap is being hopefully being closed. But I'm very careful because I'm going to throw another data. A couple of years ago, I actually personally did a research with the World Economic Forum, and we came up around 140 years in order to close globally the gender gap. We need 140 years. So let's take that extreme. Yes, we are doing better in STEM world, maybe comparatively, but that doesn't mean that 140 is going to be 10 years. So we're still talking about 100 years to be realistic. So again, three things. One is you got to think about STEM education, how it is being reflected to the workforce outcome. Yes, we are doing better in STEM jobs in terms of the earnings, but still it is going to take a long time to close even that gap.
Thank you, Ahu. Ahu, actually, you are absolutely right. And I think Jean was making a similar point, right? You made the point that after a certain management layer, that level going to director, senior director, VP becomes much harder. And we are seeing a significant drop in those levels in the business. It's the same thing when we look at our pipeline. Actually, we analyze this in my company at Precisely. We look at, for example, number of applicants. We dissect that by diversity, gender, age, race, ethnicity. In all ways, we look at how we are converting that pipeline, right? You may have 37% of women applying for a particular job, but maybe you only have 18% success to make them employees. And we look at attrition by voluntary attrition and involuntary attrition, and then look at the conversion rates. How do we do that management layer evolution? There's a program.
And
Go ahead.
Tendu, I'm very hopeful and optimistic about women in STEM. But I want us also to continue to thinking, not get stuck on how many women are in STEM, who is going there. I really want us also to focus in parallel to the outcomes in the workplace, in the society. So I think we have to really balance that thinking.
Yes, I completely agree with you. In fact, during COVID-19 pandemic, apparently in the United States, 50% of the women who were in information technology and computer science, data science, technology roles, 35 years and higher, 50% of 35 years and older women dropped their jobs. So we were not able to keep them in the workforce because of so many other things that they have to take care of during a pandemic. Their children, their elderly, their perhaps household related things. But that was a significant number in terms of like not retaining the workforce. And it is almost less about STEM there. Are we able to keep the role models? Because that will create a higher risk for the future generations. I was not able to find the exact data points for Turkey. However, I wanted to share some data points relevant, I thought, with this crowd, because earthquake is going to create a bigger gap for us. So if we look at the population in Turkey, women are nearly half of the population. However, according to end of 2022 statistics that was published 3 days ago by Turkey Statistics Institute, only 30%, average 30% participate in the workforce. So we have the 50% of the population, about 30% participate in the workforce one way or the other, any work, it's not STEM or anything. So if we kind of look at how that participation in the workforce is actually, to your point, Ahu, is related to kind of skill set. For people who are illiterate, they are not participating, almost like just 10%, you can say. People in the middle school lower, you start seeing like 1/4 of that population starts going into the workforce. So there's a direct relation in terms of how the higher level of education or skill sets, even like the technical or vocational high schools, contribute to that. Suddenly we are going to getting close to 40% participation in the workforce. So there's a really direct relation, and especially in Turkey, in the post-earthquake world, we have to do a lot, investing in a quick couple of like weeks, months, certificate programs, upskilling, reskilling, and bringing technology, because we don't even have internet access in many of those places now. 10 cities impacted from the earthquake. So I thought that these data points were somewhat interesting. I'm going to stop now. Tumay, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to share my experience about this subject, being a developer and then being a manager. Being a successful manager requires completely a new set of skills from those that make one a successful developer. It requires a different mindset. The transition from a developer to a successful manager is hard, and a combination of tech and leadership skills in developers is really quite rare. As a developer, you train to think logically, you know, if X, then Y, and to come conclusions, which is a great trait to possess in most cases. However, if you are a manager, there will be times when you will do all the right things, meet the right people, and yet still face failures. So I know women bear the brunt of household responsibilities, which makes the it's challenging to balance work and family life, and focusing on one particular task is not easy for women. There are many distracting forces for them to focus on, but we should help women to develop other mindset to be a really successful manager. It's a different mindset, and if you have a STEM education, you don't actually have this mindset mostly.
Thank you, Tumay. I see in the chat, Beste, you made a point for Girls Who Code. In my company, actually, at Precisely also, we are a corporate sponsor of Girls Who Code. They have trained over 500,000 girls in coding skills and introduction to technology. There's another one in UK, She Can Code, which provides actually great educational like podcasts and certifications and free online resources. So we are seeing that. Bridge to Turkey, of course, where many of us on this call, and Fatma and I started partnering in one of the circles. Bridge to Turkey does a lot in terms of bringing technology, training, education to underserved parts of Turkey, especially in Turkey. And we are here with Kırmızı Biber Derneği and looking forward to doing more collaboration, especially in the post-earthquake Turkey. Rachel, how do you think about the STEM's impact and the education impact from a sustainability point of view? I know Good Housekeeping is doing a lot for sustainability, and especially making sure that sustainable products are becoming more affordable and consumable and known to larger audiences. So do you have any thoughts around that?
Yes, definitely. I do just want to kind of circle back on that last discussion that we were having just in regards to that balance of quantitative and EQ skills. And then I promise I'll talk susty. But beyond the fact that it's important at a management level, so for people to be able to move up, and I wholeheartedly agree with that, it's a different skill set that's required to be layered on top of your technical knowledge. But also, just as we've been talking about technology and data, the exponential acceleration of it, you now have machines that are capable of handling a lot of data and a lot of technical interactions, but it requires a lot of kind of the social checks as well. You know, there's a lot of potential ramifications around the morality and the social and other elements of it. So even just within the base level of what is technology and how could you be interacting with it, having that social competency is also really a necessity in today's society. So I think having that judgment to be able to collaborate and for management skills and all of these things, but just across the board, I think it's incredibly important to have more of kind of the T-shaped approach to things. So you have a high level of technical fluency, but you also have this host of other skills that makes you able to kind of be more nimble within an organization and to be able to operate at different places as well. So I just wanted to throw that in as well, that I think it's kind of important across the board. And as it relates to sustainability, I will give another nod to Birner, who's also, I believe, still on the call, but she is our sustainability hero at the Good Housekeeping Institute, and really championed the cause within both the Institute as well as Hearst more globally, and then impacting our consumers. So for our sustainability awards, we collect a lot of information. There are a lot of spreadsheets. There's a lot of data, and we always look at it much more holistically than a lot of other media brands are looking at it, that it's not just a single attribute, but we're looking at something in its entirety, that we're looking at you know, the ingredients and the materials and the manufacturing and the energy and the water and the waste within the facilities. We're looking at the transportation. We're looking at end of life. We're trying to take into account all these different facets as we're able to, and then as we communicate it to the consumer, always just being as transparent as possible. There's no possible way we could look at every single product in its entirety and still be able to produce all of the content at our magazine and do all these amazing things. But for us, it's always about how can we help to push the needle? So how can we help brands think a little bit more environmentally consciously, thinking about the planet, thinking about people? So we hold a summit, and it's called Raise the Green Bar, because you're not going from 0 to 100 overnight. We want to continue to help people move the needle and improve in the facets that they're able to, and then communicate to consumers. There's so much greenwashing today, and people don't know what's what. So how can we tell them what's fact from fiction, and what are the things that actually matter? What are the things that is just marketing hype? And for us, that's a lot of data analysis. That's looking at it, that's looking under the hood, that's looking at the ingredients and the MSDS sheets, that's cross-referencing it against a lot of different databases, that's looking at, and of course, performance and efficacy and safety. Those are all paramount. So for us, it's just a part of the entirety of the process now, where previously it might have been, a vertical that was looked at. For us, it's kind of an underpinning of our philosophy and our belief that we can move towards more sustainable products, and they could be good, and they could be good for you, and they could be good for the planet, and they could be good for the company, and kind of building towards that. So for us, it's incredibly important, and it's the only way that we could be moving forward. And I know another one of the goals for the UN. So again, a lot of this is all interrelated and will positively impact one another. I personally, something else that kind of came up a little bit before was just on, it's easier to do it once you see it. It's amazing to have these role models, but I also want to impart on the group, if it doesn't exist, it doesn't mean it can't exist. And I love, before it was said as, it was an opportunity. I was the only one in the room, and what an opportunity I had. And every single person has an opportunity to kind of chart that course for themselves. And yes, it becomes easier to get the job. It becomes easier to recognize what it could be by seeing it, but you can also create it. There was never a chief technologist at Good Housekeeping before I came around. And based on what I was doing and what I was facilitating and who I was interacting with, we created that role. So again, I think, yes, let's continue to do it. Let's be there for one another. Let's lift each other up. Let's represent, let's showcase it. And also, if it's not there, it doesn't mean it can't be, or that it shouldn't be. It just means that it hasn't yet, and you can go ahead and do it. So
yes, absolutely. And we have such strong women in these areas who are often the first, right? Like yourself, and who took that step and showcased that this is an important part of the organization, and became a role model. On somewhat related to what you said, Rachel, the purpose piece and managing people and people skill accompanied with the STEM skills is becoming a little bit more important now in the post-COVID era that we are seeing, because people are tuned to having almost like a bigger purpose and working for the greater good, regardless of whether they are in sales or marketing or finance or technology or biomedical. They want to kind of have that purpose, and they want to also have that more people humility while they are interacting with their leaders and role models. So I think those social skills they continue to be important, and they will probably become more important in the age of AI, machine learning, and automation as we move forward. Ahu, I will come back to you. You are doing a research, a very important research now on the return on investment for foreign-born scientists and engineers. Can you share with us your research and findings, please?
Sure. This is a study funded by National Science Foundation, really looking at the return on investment foreign-born engineers and scientists in the US. And very interestingly, I am one of them. This actually brought up a lot of discussions around immigration as well, and the return on investment. And I started arguing that, hey, I come from a very good school, actually. There wasn't any investment on me when I started working here, because I came from a top school, economics degree. There's no investment on me. But the discussion, actually, the study went really very different angles. in this research, we looked at the foreign-born scientists and engineers groups separately from immigrants in the other fields. Otherwise, we were not going to be able to stop that immigration discussion. And what's happening is we know that STEM share of the workforce is growing in the United States, but what the data show that it is actually for the foreign-born, it is growing double rate than the average STEM workers. So the share of immigrant, the share of foreign-born scientists and engineers within the US STEM workforce is even increasing higher. That actually brought a lot of discussions about the investing the this field, but then the dilemma is how much the return is coming back to the overall US GDP. And then the other question, the other interesting data point was when you look at, as I mentioned before, when you look at the role of the STEM, female STEM workers in the US is very much relatively weak compared to the male. But within the immigrant, within the foreign-born, actually there is a better story here. And this probably is coming from the Asian culture, Asian immigrants or foreign-born scientists in the US. So that was very much hopeful.
Oh, that's great news. And actually, I saw data points showing that based on the ethnicity, for example, Asian American versus Hispanic versus other ethnicities or US born, the gap between the pay equity gap is actually different. So that's encouraging that you are seeing those results. So before I actually go into the closing remarks from everyone, and thank you so much, I wanted to share some data for future of the jobs, because this is really important. It's important for all of us, whether we are on this panel, whether we are organizing, whether we are from commercial or non-profit environments or from educational institutions. It's important to see that where the future of the market and future of the jobs is going, and how we are gonna actually contribute to that by collaborating with each other across businesses, non-profits, educational institutes, and as well as from the investors. So this is a World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Report, and it's end of 2021 numbers. World Economic Forum estimated that 70% of new value created in the economy. We are talking about the global economy. 70% of new value created in the economy over the next decade will be based on digitally enabled platform businesses. So this is a huge number, right? Everything is digitization, and regardless of which field of study, whether it's music, my son actually does music, produces music with his computer, and it's all digital. Whether it's art, we are seeing in the art forms also, whether it's content generation with OpenAI and ChatGPT, the whole content generation is probably need to revamp itself for the next decade. However, 47% of the world's population remain unconnected to internet. So that's a surprising number, right? We expect 70% of new value created in the economy will be digitally based and digital business, yet almost 50% of the world still doesn't have connectivity to internet. So the gap is gonna grow if we look at that. So the same data points to significant challenges for gender parity in the future of jobs. Now you look at this chart, you see that some of the clusters, like jobs of tomorrow clusters around people, culture, and content production, to the point that Rachel was making about how, and Ahu made this point as well, how important it is to have the other skills combined with STEM. So these are relatively in a better place in terms of representation of women. But if we look at the cloud computing, today in cloud computing, we have women make up 14% of the workforce. In engineering, 20% of the workforce. In data and artificial intelligence, 32% of the workforce. So we are looking at the future of jobs and to tomorrow, and it really highlights that in order to maintain and improve the women's participation in the workforce, we will need to be focusing on these emerging job trends and proactively create those training programs, certification programs, outreach programs in our communities. And regardless of that community, whether it's our alma mater, whether it's our charity or our country. So I'm going to go with the closing comments from all of our distinguished panelists. Jean, let me start with you.
Tendu, I was deeply touched by what everyone says, and it's also very encouraging, and it's a wonderful session. I myself learned quite a lot. The future is bright, but there's a lot of work ahead, especially the workforce inequity issue. I saw one question actually raised at the chat box regarding we're approaching superwomen model. As if every woman has to be so super, despite the fact that in reality, there are so many other things that hinder women from moving ahead. Housework, daycare, family responsibilities, etc. I absolutely agree. It is an uphill battle for women, no matter what. So it's not an easy task. We have to overcome many, many obstacles, but there are ways societies are providing better and better support. So we just have to stick on, lean in, and eventually get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you for participating in this discussion. Lean in. Yes, that's a great way to close from you. Tumay, how about you? Any closing thoughts? Any thoughts on what we can do to change the landscape?
I think it's important to note that everyone's path to success is unique, and there are many factors that can influence this. First, I want to share my factors, and I had a very good role model. First of all, I always felt like if he did this, I could also do it. My brother is in STEM field himself, is a very good best developer in Turkey. He has always been my mentor. He always supported me. And also I want to mention my husband's role in encouraging me to pursue and work in being an entrepreneur. His role is critical in my life. He always supported me. He is my high school sweetheart and knows very well about my accomplishments. He always supported me. So, and I always like to find a partner who is a man, but ambitious about helping and breaking down gender barriers. When I evaluate how I became successful, I see that the men around me played a critical role. They were supportive, and they are the men who raised by mothers who taught their sons to respect people of all genders, challenge gender stereotypes, discuss gender issues, and provide positive reinforcements. It's always important to address the challenges girls face when pursuing STEM careers. We can help them support, encouragement, and with the encouragement resources they need, we can help create a more diverse and inclusive workspace, provide a female role model, and encourage them to pursue STEM fields. And I did this for my daughter, and now I am the proud mother of a female engineer also. But I have a son. I am a mother of a son. I am aware of my responsibility, above all, to raise a man who believes in gender equality and helps girls develop the skills and confidence they need to pursue STEM careers, and helps close the gender gap in these fields. It's my biggest responsibility, I think.
That's really touchy. I have a son too, and I think we can change this just on our own, right? We can be the role models, we can be the first ones in our fields. We still need that ecosystem of support, and we need to raise the future men the way that we can open up seats at the table for women, for people of color, for different ethnicities, for every diverse group that is currently underrepresented. Thank you for those wonderful thoughts. Rachel.
I'll echo the sentiments of everything that was just said. And to Dr. Zhu, thank you. I've stolen many Stevens alum at the Institute and have loved every single one of them. So thank you for what you are building and growing there. I too have a son and two daughters. And again, just recognizing my role in helping to build and to shape them to be what they want to be, and also to empower them, that all of them are welcome at the table. Like everything that you guys were saying, I echo wholeheartedly. I also chose a partner, and that has made all the difference, who is extremely supportive. And when I, like right now, have to be on a panel, he is taking the lion's share of whatever might be going on outside of this room. And also just about you, I will share, I had a tough week. I had a hard week. I had a hard week juggling the personal and the professional, and every single person who was a part of this panel helped to support me. I was not able to show up for the pre-call for this, and we still made it happen. I had a family emergency, and that had to take the priority in that moment. And yet we rallied together and were able to put together a really brilliant, beautiful thing, because everybody else stepped up when I wasn't able to be there. So again, it's about finding that really beautiful community, people who support you, people who are there to rally and bring up the people around you as well. I dropped in the chat, if you have any young women or men in your life, Birner and I work on a science experiments book for kids, and we're building out an entire library of books that are designed for STEM education for children. So having them hands-on and experimenting and trying to do our part there as well. And I know there were a few other questions just about programs or ideas. So feel free to reach out afterwards. And I'm also happy to share some of the resources that we find helpful.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we heard consistently lean in and have a supporting community. That's really an important one. Ahu, what are your closing thoughts?
Tendu, it's tough to be the last, in closing thoughts, because I will echo exactly all the sentiments. I grew up 4 women in the house, actually. I am the least educated among my sisters, just to be fact. So that's the household I'm coming from. And I'm a mother of a 17-year-old boy. I have a girl and a boy, and I started observing the differences actually in my household, how this gender inequality, is being built. So I think we as the mothers also play a very important role, and we have to attract more men into this discussion, whether at home, whether at workplace, or whether in media. More men has to join us in these webinars. So I also echo Jean, we are not superwomen. That's why we also need policy intervention. We need help. It's not help. Government should, public policies should support, must support us. Why? Because we have to invest in early education. This education has to start from elementary school, not from at the college level. So we have to have initiatives for female representations early on. And then we also have to implement government policies around gender discrimination, whether it's a STEM or non-STEM. And then we have to foster the culture in the workplace for diversity. And as a data scientist, then we must have measures and metrics built to really follow and measure the outcomes of all these discussions that we have been doing over the past years, and we will continue to do. Thank you.
Great points. I would like to thank our panelists for this very insightful discussion and inspire everyone on this call that by 2050, 75% of jobs will be related to STEM areas. We discussed how can we make that more reliable, affordable, and accessible. We will need, as Ahu mentioned, government policies, interventions to be able to make internet available at the minimum and create policies around diversity and gender equity and pay gap, right? Those are going to be important, one. Two, we discussed that having early education, skilling, upskilling, reskilling is going to be super important. So participation from the nonprofit organizations, partnerships from commercial and educational institutions is going to be critical to make affordable programs and invest in these areas. Three, we talked about this is a huge opportunity for women. At the same time, we have to make sure that we are creating that support system and measuring with data and performance indicators so we can see the impact of the programs and how we are improving them and increasing the pipelines for these jobs, retaining women in the positions that they take in the workforce, as well as removing bias from all of the data as well as the roles that we play. I want to thank everyone, and I want to finish with the fact that we have an urgency and priority that we have to start bridging this gap for quality education in the post-earthquake Turkey before it becomes a bigger and bigger challenge for the future generations, so we can enable the girls and the women impacted in these areas. And we will be coming to you with a specific call for actions and mobilization of this powerful group of people attending this panel. I want to also thank the committee, the hidden people behind the cameras who organized this event. Bahar Arı, Neslihan Çakıroğlu, Fulya Kulabaş, Birnur Aral Nehrozoğlu, Bengü Ulukaya, Tibet Yakut, and Türkiye Kırmızı Biber Derneği team, and our interpreters, Çağlayan Sayhan Soydan and Deniz Yetkin. Thank you. We couldn't have done this event without you. We couldn't have done this event without the audience who is here. Bengü, I will turn to you for the Q&A.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists again for sharing their experiences. It has been a wonderful experience for me as a young woman in STEM. I learned a lot, and from the chat, I'm seeing people have questions to our panelists about how they can better improve themselves in STEM areas. So I'll start with that. The first question is, what's your advice to young professionals in STEM fields who aspire to be in management positions? What type of people skills do you believe they need to acquire before landing in these roles? And this is a general question to all panelists. And if you have something to say, please raise your hand and I can give the speaking to you. Any one of our panelists? Tendu Yugucho, yes.
I can take that. There are specific programs, actually. We Lead, it's a UK-based program. We are, for example, using We Lead in India because we have about 700 employees in India, and we noticed that the progression from management to higher levels of leadership was much slower in India than Europe and US. So we focused in that, but this program has some specific steps. For example, they do educate for management skills around negotiation. Negotiation is a very important skill. They educate around how do you articulate your role to the higher business goal. The better you can articulate what you are doing to the goals of the business and the outcomes, whether that business is non-profit or a commercial organization or a government organization, doesn't matter. They do specific training. And then there are also aspects of this very important. How do you as a leader become a better listener and have sensitivity around language you use? For example, if you start every meeting, hey guys, when 30% of the room is women, that's a language issue, and we are all used to that, right? They do that sensitivity training. I'm giving these examples because I think it's important to become leaders, right? Those management skills are important. And of course, I am in data, so I can't just overlook that. Being a data-driven leader is super important. That's the only way you can become a fair person and fair leader. That's the only way you can actually make your decisions and explain your decisions and give development goals to the leaders you are developing, to the people you are developing, by being based on data, setting the expectations right, and communicating and having that transparently. Aho, you want to take?
Yes, I'm going to say something very simple. My observation when I run my data scientist teams or in any other role that I was managing, actually, women are much more self-aware. And when you add that STEM field to that, you're also super smart, and that makes you even much intelligent, being as self-aware. And this is a hurdle. This is a hurdle. Unfortunately, men are not that self-aware. Men actually, this is a very cliche, when there's a job advertisement, 60% to 30%, if a man thinks that can do it, they go apply. I'll tell you what happened with me. I saw that CEO job. I was this senior vice president in a company. And then I saw this, my current role, CEO. My first reaction is, oh, I'm not going to be a CEO. I mean, this is, you know, CEO is a big word. Started reading. It was all talking about me. And then it gave me that courage to apply because I know that job description was written to me. But my first reaction was, well, it's the CEO. So I actually criticize myself on this, but that self-awareness, putting the women behind. So we have to be very much aware of our self-awareness degree. The other thing I will tell, especially to the young women, get a mentor. When I say mentor, this is not just a mentor to talk. Get a mentor inside the business, inside the company, and outside the company. I do have mentors. I have like internal, my team members. My CFO is my mentor. Like, you have to really keep that pushing yourself and getting help. Don't be shy to ask for help and be courage. We women know more than others. I learned this in the business, and I'm saying this very seriously. Like, we know more than men. Once you accept that, the sky is endless.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. Do any of our panelists want to chime in on this?
Can I just share a fun anecdote? I was a part of a grouping of people where we were sharing feedback on postpartum services and offerings by our company. And somebody said there's no person more efficient than a mother, you know, just the ability, you know, as we've all shared here, you recognize sometimes there's just a quicker, faster, more efficient way of getting something done that's going to enable you to do that next thing that you want to do. And it was just something that really stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty accurate, you know? So anyway, just sharing a fun anecdote of something that resonated with me and stuck with me all these years.
Thank you so much. All right, then let's move on to the next question. We talked about the hardness of reaching undergraduate education, especially in the US, that the tuition rates are higher than ever. And one of the questions is, are there any technology, programming, data analytics training programs that you can recommend? And especially for young professionals who may already have a job but are trying to gain more technology skills, getting to a higher level STEM job.
If you're a government agency workers, we do have, but you have to be employed by the government. But I will also say that, I mean, I don't know specific ones, maybe Tendu, you may know. I know just that there are open source right now, all the technology is open source, and there are many on the internet. You can find free through the open source. Like all our work, for example, as a public policy agency is open source. You can see our training programs in applied data analytics, which we offer. All the curriculum is open source.
Yeah, I have some specific examples actually, and I can also put in the chat. So, for example, there's a Career Foundry blog where they give a ton of resources in terms of the online data analytics and coding courses. So let me just put this. I was just trying to open that document, and I think this will be useful if you are interested. And
I was going to say, Tendu, while you're dropping it in, another one that I frequently recommend, it's based in New York City, is General Assembly. And they offer a lot of free curriculum as well. So like right now on their site, they have for UX design, they have intro to coding, they have data analytics, and these are all free programs. And then if you decide you want to kind of lean into one more specifically, they have more robust offerings. I'm sure, yes, there are a host of different ones, but this is one that I've worked with some of their courses before. I've had people go through it, and I can highly recommend it as well.
And the other thing is that cloud vendors, right? Public cloud vendors, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they are offering really great resources and free certifications, which help with the skill sets. And I will drop another set of resources. I actually used this recently in a She Can Code podcast because they asked me if I have specific recommendations. These are some books I found that really, helpful, because listening is a very important skill, and Just Listen by Mark Goldstein is a very important one. And it's less about women. I think women are often better listeners, but it's also about how do you get your point out and make the rest of the people in the room listen to you. So I thought that that was a good one. And then the other one is about negotiation skills. Never split the difference. That's a great one. And there's actually an Amazon book, Make Your Point. It's like so simple. It's like an elementary school book. Make your point. Get to the point. Don't dwell around and how do you make that crystal clear. And the one thing is about how do you create that focus. So these are more career-related things. If you are interested, I shared them in the chat.
Thank you so much for all the panelists for sharing their resources. I'm sure they will help a lot of people excel at their positions. So moving on, let's talk about the earthquakes in Turkey and how we can better empower women in Turkey right now after the devastating earthquakes. So one of the questions is, after the terrifying earthquakes, will women and girls in Turkey be feeling the aftershocks the most? And how can the technology help them?
Fatma, I am raising my hand. However, I will give the microphone to you. I'm raising to give the microphone to you because I think you have great insights, and then I will add to your thoughts.
Yes, thank you, Tendu. Yeah, as I said at the beginning, we are so sorry, I mean, for the devastating earthquakes. And tomorrow night, we will have a women get together for the children of Turkey affected by the earthquake. We will have it in Turkey with Turkish consulate in New York. I mean, you all are invited, all welcome. We can share the invitation through the chat, or if you leave the email to the chat, we can send you the invitation letter. Thank you,
Fatma.
Thank you, Tendu. I mean, yes, this is the way I shared the invitation with you.
That's
it's
great.
over you.
So we that event that Fatma mentioned is both to also have a reception, so we can welcome the members of the nonprofits who joined us for the Commission on the Status of Women events coming from Turkey, and have that networking with them, and also utilize that gathering to also discuss and continue to have fundraising around education for girls and women in the area. In general, what can we do? So we have these terrific organizations like Bridge to Turkey. They have done, our friends, they have done such a fantastic job during the earthquake with the transparency in terms of how the basic needs were initially targeted, right? We had to do basic needs in the first 4 weeks, and then think about how we can have a little bit more sustainable conditions in that area. And moving forward, actually, yesterday they had a panel in Church Center as well. How are we going to channel some of those funds in terms of bringing technology, in terms of bringing training, connecting the kids in those areas to education again, right? The education wasn't their first priority probably in the first couple of weeks. Turkish Philanthropy Fund is another one who has done a terrific job with the fundraisers and creating that transparency again in terms of how they will be creating long-term sustainable educational funds in that area. Yesterday, they actually pledged $1 million for women empowerment in the earthquake impacted areas. Our role can be both through those organizations and what we do and how we create awareness and how we organize those funds and work directly, or can be by being the champions in our local communities. During that time, we have seen several İTÜ Mezunları Derneği, Boğaziçi Mezunları Derneği, TED, Bir Umut by Bingül and Tufan Sevimli. Every community was creating awareness in their environment, right? That's going to be very important because we have a really big task in front of us, a long term. This is not a one-year solution. It's going to be next 10 years that we will need to really show tremendous focus in that largely impacted area and make sure we are not dropping the kids, women, girls in those areas from the education system, from the workforce, and we are investing in their future.
Thank you so much. I see Timay Ulkay's hand up.
I just want to add that earthquakes disrupt education, and in Turkey and Syria, girls are much more likely to be pulled out of school. Girls who never return to school are specifically at risk. When girls miss the school, they are more at risk early marriage. Child marriage has increasing and increased earlier in Syria since the war began 12 years ago. And I think Turkey already has one of the highest rates of child marriage in Europe. Therefore, it's really important to help them to continue their education. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. All right. If nobody else wants to comment on this topic, we can move on to the next question. So in the chat, I've been seeing young women asking for advice into getting into STEM fields. So I want to ask, what advice do you have for women entering or thinking of entering STEM fields today? What advice would you give your young self just starting out in a STEM field?
Xingqiu, you can share your experience in this subject.
Yeah, Bengi, that's a great question for you. What do you give advice? You are in STEM field.
I'm still a young person just entering a STEM field, so I would be very happy to hear your experiences. But one thing I would say is, I think this emotion has been also said in this panel, but have courage to say, I can do this, because like Ahu Yildirmaz said, we're too self-aware. We sometimes think we're not worthy of a position, we're not skilled enough for a position, but we can learn anything, we can do anything, and nobody, no man or woman who applies for a job is 100% right for that job. So it's on us to say the courage to say we can do this and build ourselves up on the job. But yes, I would love to hear your experiences and advice.
I can give a couple of points. I think we are at the end of our time, and then Fatma, maybe you can do the closing for the session. So from my experience, first, you have to stay current. You have to do your job well, stay current, pay attention to emerging challenges, emerging technologies. What is emerging today will become current very soon. So stay current and do your job well. Second, quicker you can tie into the business of the organization, whether that's a nonprofit, whether it's a revenue growth or optimizing cost. Make sure you can articulate what you do so that your boss, your educator, your colleagues understand the value you bring. Third, get involved and support women while being a woman. Think about your background as an asset. Your accent, your authentic yourself brings value and individuality and diversity to the organization. And these are very important, not just for you, for the success of the business, success of world's economy. So always remember that your authentic yourself is a super valuable asset for the world's economy and your business.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tendu. Thank you, Bengucum. Thank you, Tendu. Thank you all. You shared a precious experience to all the panel, to all the attendants. Really, I learned a lot. I used to be a businesswoman. Now I am an activist in the civil society. I learned a lot, and I can say that. In the technology area, in STEM area, future is bright. I can say that future is bright. Even I cannot say the same thing in the politics, women in politics area. But future is bright. I am full of hope with all of you. Thank you for sharing everything. For the earthquake, this is not a one time, thing, one time donation, or one time. We need to. This is a marathon, and we need to focus on the earthquake victims of Turkey and all of the region, and we need to help. We don't need to forget. We will always keep them in our minds and in our hearts, and we will do our best for them. Let me finish today's panel saying thank you to all. Education is the most important thing, and data is the second most important thing. Yesterday, I learned a word from the other panelists in the CSW67 forum. They say digital citizenship. I like the term, so I wanted to share it with you. Goodbye to all, and thank to all. We will share these recordings in our YouTube channel, so you can access to the YouTube channel. You can, if you would like to listen it again, and you can share it with your networks. Thank you all. Yes, I can see Özlem. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming, and have a great day. The CSW67 is continuing. It will be until the March 2017. So hope to see you in the area.